portal to the universe. You are listening to Risale Podcasts.
Have you ever stopped to think about how differently people can look at the exact same thing, like the world around us?
Absolutely. One person sees incredible design, maybe, another just stuff happening.
Exactly. And what shapes those really fundamental perceptions? That's what we're diving into today.
We're looking specifically at the different worldviews of believers and unbelievers as they're laid out in the Risale-i collection.
Right. You, our listener, shared these writings with us, and you were curious about this core difference in perspective. So that's our mission today.
Yeah, to unpack that contrast using the Risale-i collection itself, just as you asked, we'll be looking directly at what it says.
Okay, so let's start with the believer's perspective. According to the Risale-i collection, a huge theme seems to be divine unity, or tawhid.
The idea that the universe isn't just random, but it's governed, actively governed by one creator.
And it's not like a distant creator, right? It's someone involved. The Duisman said Nursey puts it really powerfully in the flashes.
Oh, the spring and the flower analogy.
That's the one. This is what Risale-i says about it. He creates the huge spring with the ease of creating a flower.
Wow. That really hits home, doesn't it? The scale difference, but the ease is the same. It suggests limitless power.
Effortless power, yeah. It just reframes the whole idea of creation. Takes away any sense of struggle or difficulty for the creator.
And that belief in one power, it naturally leads to seeing purpose everywhere.
Yes, that's another big point. For the believer, nothing is just there. Everything has a role, a meaning, and a bigger divine plan.
Like soldiers in an army. I think that's another analogy from the flashes.
Exactly. This is what Risale-i says about it. Each particle, each creature, each living being even, resembles a soldier who has different relations with all the sections of the army and different duties that look to each.
So even the tiniest thing is connected, performing its duty. It's not isolated.
Right. It contributes to this grand, interconnected design.
And this ties into how believers see the whole universe testifying to God, doesn't it?
It does. The Risale-i collection says, again in the flashes, that everything testifies to the necessary existence of the pre-eternal, all-powerful one in two respects.
So the universe isn't silent. It's actively, pointing towards its creator.
In multiple ways, yeah. Which leads to this feeling of connection, dependence on God.
Ah, yes. Not feeling alone or self-sufficient, but recognizing you rely on God's power, his knowledge, his will for everything.
There's that analogy in the letters, isn't there, about the telegraph line?
Right. Connecting to the main line gives you infinite power versus just having your own little battery, basically.
Yeah, it's a great image for the security and strength that comes from that belief, that connection.
Okay, so that's a sketch of the believer's viewpoint as presented. Now let's contrast that. How does the Risale-i collection describe the unbeliever's perspective?
Well, it's fundamentally different, as you'd expect. Where the believer sees God's hand, the Risale-i collection suggests the unbeliever often points to what? Nature, chance.
Material forces, yeah. Attributing the universe's order and complexity to things like matter itself, or just random processes.
But Useman addresses this head-on in the flashes. He finds it, problematic.
He questions the logic, right?
He does. This is what Risale-i says about it. Could human beings be so ignorant as to attribute actions and works that can only be carried out by one who is both beyond space and present in such a way as to see, know, and direct all things in the creation of all things everywhere, to particles and their motion, which are tossed around in the storms of lifeless, blind, unconscious chance that lacks will and balance?
That's quite a direct challenge. The argument seems to be that it's less rational, maybe even superstitious in its own way, to attribute divine-level works to causes that are inherently, blind and unconscious.
Like particles just bumping into each other? How does that create this? That seems to be the question posed.
And if you remove the idea of a creator in a divine plan,
then the inherent purposefulness, the interconnectedness that the believer sees, it kind of dissolves, doesn't it? At least in the way the Risale-i collection portrays that view.
Yeah, the meaning structure changes completely, which must drastically affect how you deal with life's difficulties like suffering.
Oh, absolutely. That's a major point of contrast. For the believer, even something awful like illness, it can be seen differently.
Not just bad luck.
Right. The Risale-i collection in the flashes actually describes illness as potentially being a kind of divine gift almost, an awakening.
You share that part?
Sure. This is what Risale-i says about it. Brother, I am not opposed to this illness of yours. I don't feel sorry for you because of it, that I should pray for you. Try to be patient until the illness awakens you completely, and once it has performed its duty, the compassionate Creator will restore you to health, God willing.
Wow. That's a very different way to frame illness. Seeing it as having a duty, a purpose to wake you up spiritually.
It allows for finding meaning, even growth, in hardship, which contrasts sharply with how an unbeliever might just see it as meaningless misfortune, pure suffering.
So belief provides a framework for meaning even in the worst time.
And solace, too. Especially in things like loneliness or exile. The Risale-i collection really emphasizes this. Again, in the flashes, it speaks about God's mercy being the ultimate comfort. This is what Risale-i says about it. Even if your aloneness and exile together with your illness were to arouse sympathy towards you in the hardest hearts and attract kindness and compassion, could it be a substitute for your all-compassionate Creator? Then surely your relation to him through belief, your recognizing him and beseeching him through the tongue of impotence, arising from your illness and the affliction of your loneliness and exile, will attract the glance of his mercy towards you, which takes the place of everything.
That's powerful. The idea that connecting with God through belief provides a comfort that nothing else, no human sympathy even, can truly replace. It takes the place of everything.
It really underscores the believer's ultimate reliance on the divine.
Okay, another huge area of difference must be the view on what comes next, the hereafter.
Definitely. For believers, this world isn't the final stop. It's temporary, maybe a testing ground.
Whereas the hereafter is seen as the place of true, eternal reward.
And importantly, free from the struggles and rivalries we see here, the Risale-i collection describes paradise in the flashes in a way that highlights this.
What does it say?
This is what Risale-i says about it. Quote, in the hereafter, a 500-year paradise will be given to a single individual. 70,000 palaces and houris will be granted to him, and every one of the people of paradise will be perfectly satisfied with his share. It is thus clear that there is no cause for rivalry in the hereafter, nor can there be rivalry.
So complete satisfaction, no jealousy, no competition, just fulfillment. That's a stark contrast to the potential view of death as just the end, oblivion.
Right. If your focus is solely on this material world, death looks very different than if you see it as a transition.
And finally, tied into all this is the role of, well, divine guidance itself, prophets, scriptures.
Yeah, the Risale-i collection implicitly highlights this difference too. Believers accept and follow that guidance as coming from the Creator. It's their map, so to speak.
Whereas the contrasting perspective, again as implied, might involve skepticism or rejection of revealed truth, relying more on human reason or empirical evidence alone.
So wrapping this up, what we see in the Risale-i collection is this deep contrast. The believer's view centered on God's unity, seeing purpose everywhere, finding meaning even in trials, hoping for the hereafter, and accepting divine guidance.
And the unbeliever's perspective, as portrayed there, often explaining things through nature or chance, potentially lacking that sense of overarching purpose or an eternal dimension beyond this life. And it's important, like you said, to remember this is the comparison presented within the Risale-i collection.
Exactly. We're exploring the ideas found in these specific writings.
So, thinking about these two very different ways of looking at the world, as laid out by said Nursi, what resonates most with you? What questions pop up for you about your own understanding of existence when you hear this comparison?
That's the question to ponder. For more information, read the Risale-i collection.
You have listened to the Risale Nur podcasts, Portal to the Universe. For more, please visit risalenurtv.com/podcasts.